This is an exclusive excerpt from the Stuph File Program with Peter Anthony Holder.
Ben Miller is an amazing artist who is truly one of a kind. He is the world's only fly cast painter. Instead of a regular paintbrush, he dips his special flies in paint, attaches them to a fly rod, and then flings them against a canvas that is dozens of feet away. Ben joins us via Zoom from Montana. Hi, Ben.
Hey, good morning, Peter. Glad to be here.
Thanks for being on the program with us. Now, I happened to catch the video that is on your website, and I urge everyone to catch that video. It truly is amazing to see what you do. Now, you are the first and only fly cast painter, so I got to ask right off the bat, how did you create this amazing art form?
You know, I've been fly fishing since I was a little tiny guy, and then I pursued the arts, and one day it was just, oh my gosh, this is who I am and this is what I want to do. And then it was like trying to find the subject matter and just how fly fishing on rivers and then just painting that river from that perspective, everything just kind of fell into place. And I knew that's what I wanted to do with my life. So it was such a strong urge that it was pretty powerful to try and figure this out. So I jumped down that rabbit hole, and now it's evolving, I think, just how art should. Trying out different brushes, different techniques, and just trying to convey the idea of a river using the fly rod with sort of a looser kind of stroke than, say, what a paintbrush might bring to the table.
Now, again, I'm an inner city kid, right? I've never been fly fishing. I've seen it on film, seen it on television. I find it fascinating, but I've never experienced it. And I always got the impression that when a fly fisherman just casts that rod, it's going relatively within the vicinity of where he or she wants it to go. But when I watch your video where you're actually painting this way, you seem to have pinpoint precision as to where that is going. Am I wrong in assuming that generally speaking, fly fishermen have that pinpoint precision, or is it just something that you adapted and created for your art?
That is the thing about fly fishing, and that is the scenario, because people fly fish not because it's easy, but because it's a challenge. It's a problem, and you're just problem solving the whole time. And the precision, oh yeah, there are fly fishermen out there that are absolutely amazing as to what kind of presentation they're going to deliver to the trout, because then that will determine their success. I mean, the margin of success is such a real thing as to trying to be able to fool that trout that is feeding on a certain type of bug or in a certain situation. A lot of fly fishermen will absolutely pride themselves on their pinpoint precision as to where that fly is going to go and then be presented to that trout, because there are so many different variables that go into that movement and that practice.
When you start painting, when you're working with a blank canvas, do you envision how that canvas will look when it's completed before you even, I guess, toss that fly? Or does the picture develop in front of you and you say, yeah, that's what I want? It's not necessarily what I imagined, but that's what I want.
That is such a great question. One of the things that I would want to always work on and get excited about the art is to try and show that river in front of me as the painting. So do I envision it as the river or the painting itself, like the finish? I can't really say that I would be that literal, and I don't think that the art is that literal either. But the one thing that I have going for me as far as the interpretation of the river would be shapes and ratio of color at certain phases of the painting. So if, say, you have like some white foam or some flecks on top of the river, you're going to have to make a determination with your surface as to how much of that is going to be this white foam throughout the painting. And that is pretty simple judgment to make, because once you get done with that, then you move on to the next phase and the next color scheme that's going to go underneath it, because the paintings are painted backwards, where I paint like on a clear surface and then the river's moving, but then it's going to give you certain colors at certain depths as you look into the water. And that's really what I'm trying to capture.
Now, what exactly is it that you are painting on?
I paint on a non-reflective plexiglass, usually about a 3 foot by 4 feet when if I'm out on the rivers, and then moving into, say, a studio space or I have a study of the river that I'll paint from, we get a lot bigger than that.
Again, it's fascinating to watch how your work materializes through the course of the video that people, again, I should emphasize, should go to your website and take a look at. You also have a greater vision as to why you're painting these rivers and why you're doing this. Explain that to us.
It really comes down to what is important to people, and water is an absolute essential part of our lives. Everyone can, I think, relate to rivers. It's one of the things that drew me to Montana was the culture of the rivers. Like if you were to say the Yellowstone River, the Madison, and especially within the fly fishing realm, those are world renowned. And everybody can accept the fact that everyone's out there using a fly rod to try and catch these fish. It's interesting too, like, the fly rod, the weight of the line throws a presentation where, say, if you're fishing with lures or bait, the weight of the lure or the bait throws the presentation. That's kind of the difference between the two forms of trying to capture these stories that inhabit these rivers. I guess people are drawn to water. I would say that people are drawn to water more than actually the creature that they're pursuing. Like you could go out and you could fish and catch nothing, but you still had a great day. And I think that is a very powerful place for people to be, as on the bank of a river. And I think people are also drawn to that sort of atmosphere.
How long have you been doing this? And when you first started and people were asking, what is it you're doing? And you explained, did they look at you askew and go, what?
I've been doing this about 7 years. And the explanation never ends when people ask me what I'm doing. But one of the most beautiful moments actually took place for me in Canada. And it was up in Banff along Lake Louise. And they have this pathway, like a pathway. And so what I'm doing is I'm trying to get people to kind of see what's going on here. There was this moment where they have this asphalt pathway up the side of the lake. I'm set out in the middle of the lake. I'm making a painting that's set up on the side of the lake there. And everybody that came up that trail would say, hey, there's a fly fisherman as I'm standing out in this lake. It was pretty cold. But as they got closer, they would say, oh, he's not fishing, he's painting. At that moment, it was like I changed the perspective in a little way. And I think that as far as an artist, I think that is kind of why there is such a thing as artists. And one guy walked away saying that was the dumbest thing he's ever seen in his life. But and I love that because, and he said it to everybody, as he's walking away in a huff. It provoked such a reaction. And it was beautiful because he might not have agreed with it, but he had to acknowledge it. So as far as the explanation goes, people will always draw their own conclusions. But then, as I try to dive in, oh, okay, we're going to have a deep conversation here, it just kind of goes on at me trying to explain it all. So it has layers. It's fun. The interaction with people, I would say, is also part of the process as to what they're going to gain from what they've experienced and what I'm doing and their reaction or idea about it. It's really fun.
How long does it take you to complete a painting?
It's taking longer, but usually about 5 to 6 hours for a 3 foot by 4 foot painting.
I noticed in the video that some paintings you do starting completely in your gallery or in your workspace, and some paintings you do by actually being by the water's edge. Is there a preference as to how you like to start your painting?
Yes, I love being on the water's edge. The information is there. It's always readily available. There is more of a connection to the water. The studies that I'll make is more of a reimagined idea of standing on that river. And the other thing, too, about it is that the light doesn't change with the study. I go out there, I capture it. I'll even talk in the video for 30 seconds as to what I want this painting to show. And then by then I'll have the brushes created that I want to have exhibit that stream and then carry on with the ideas that are preconceived. Do I know what the painting is going to look like? No, even then, it's a abstract idea of what I'm seeing and then what I want to convey. There are some times though too where I look at a painting and I'll say, "My gosh, this is so literal." I want to get more into the abstract as to what the river's showing.
How well do your paintings sell?
They do pretty well. I'm trying to just navigate my way, and I think that art is eternal. So I think the only way to go from here is kind of in an upward direction. Ideally, I would like to travel the world and paint all the famed rivers that are in existence.
Do you feel that there has to be an explanation to your work? The reason why I ask that is, again, I watched the video and I went to your website, and the stuff you do is beautiful. It's absolutely amazing. But it takes on an entirely different level of aura when you know how it's done. I get the feeling if I had one on my wall, people would go, "Oh, that's gorgeous, that's beautiful." And then I start to explain how you did it, and everyone would go, "Wow."
Well, thank you. It's ideally, I close my eyes and I imagine the rivers I've been on, and I know that I love fly fishing, and I would like to bring a river into a space. And every time that person looks at that it would just remind them of that river that they love to be on. That's kind of at the heart of where I see the art kind of being. But yeah, I love that. I appreciate that you, yes, dive into the process, which is, I think, so important as to what the art is about, to where the advantages of a fly rod is the velocity and capturing the movement. And I think that's a big piece of how the art is then interpreted, as if it wasn't a fly rod, but more of an abstract idea of a paintbrush. And I think when you start to consider all the facets that go into making that mark, the interpretation of the painting is going to take on, yes, a very different meaning.
Well, again, it's fascinating stuff. I can't crow about it enough. All I can say is people should go to your website, which is benmillerartist.com, and also to your Instagram, and just see the work that you've done, and also see how the work is done. Ben, thank you very, very much for taking the time to be on the program with us.
Oh, thank you, Peter. Thanks for reaching out, and it's great to be here. I really appreciate it.
Flycast painter Ben Miller. Again, his work is spectacular. You can go to my website at thestuffile.com, check out the show number for this program, which is show number 0745, and you'll find links to Ben's site, which includes that video that I was talking about that I urge you to watch.
You've just heard an exclusive excerpt from the Stuph File Program with Peter Anthony Holder. To hear any or all of the full hour-long shows, visit thestuffile.com. Stuph is spelled S-T-U-P-H. That's thestuffile.com. A presentation of Flying Fish Communications.